Okay, so I'd like to start out today just by thanking you all for joining us. I'd like to use this as a session for us to explain what it is that we've been doing. We have some special guests joining us. I'd like to thank Representative John Gannon, Representative Laura Sibilia, Deb Boudreau from the Vermont Small Business Development Center, Gretchen Haverluck of Wilmington Economic Development, Shannon Wheeler of Dover Economic Development, and Meg Staloff of Wilmington Works, who are all on the call to help us with some updates and to answer questions and things like that. So hopping right into it, updates from the chamber. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what it is that we've been doing since this whole thing started. So first and foremost, what we're trying to do is collect as much information for you guys as we possibly can. That includes being on calls there's a group of us. It consists of myself, Meg Staloff from Wilmington Works, and Gretchen Haverluck from the Wilmington Economic Development Department. I've been keeping Shannon from Dover in the loop on this as well, just from our meetings. We have a call about twice a week just to discuss what it is that we should be finding and sending out to you guys. There's also a weekly call with the Wyndham Economic Resiliency Group that we're on with the BDCC each week. On the calls with the local select boards, as well as my weekly calls with the Vermont Association of Chambers of Commerce executives. So from all of those calls, we're able to gather information and updates and get those out to you on a pretty regular basis. So that's, we've also been following the news and doing follow-ups with our legislators and representatives on the state level. From there, the next step is for us to be available answering questions for you. So all of the phone calls from the chamber have been forwarded directly to my cell phone. I'm not physically at the chamber most days just because there's no reason to be as a visitor center. However, if you call the chamber number, you're going to get me on my cell phone. If I don't pick right up on my cell phone, just go ahead and leave a message there and I'll get back to you. But I am answering the phone to take care of all of your questions you might have at this time, and then obviously responding to any email questions that you guys send in to us. Normally around twice a week, our group, again, myself, Meg from Wilmington Works, and Gretchen are getting information together into an email. So those emails come out about twice a week. In those emails, so tomorrow we have an email going out that is going to have information about money that, grant money that may be available from the U.S. Chamber, and masks information from the Deerfield Valley Rotary and their masquerade group. If you look back through previous emails that we've sent, you get things like SBA information and updates, state updates, information about the weekly BDCC call for businesses that they host every Friday at 2:15. The programs. So for instance, Cronin Co. is doing a t-shirt program down in Wilmington for the entire valley. Fish at Great Eastern Radio is offering programs for the radio. They have their Friends and Neighbors program where they're encouraging everyone to record a 6 to 7 second clip of audio, and they're playing those on the radio. Hey, we're open, come get some food from us, things like that. And they're actually going to be offering every chamber member up to 20 free radio commercials once the governor lifts the state of emergency. So, really great programs there. Also programs from VTTV, who's hosting Live on the 802 from home. So if you'd like more information on that, we're sending that stuff out as well. Unemployment updates from the town of Wilmington and Dover and Reedsboro and Jacksonville and Whitingham as we get them. We're providing you with resources, the ACCD, Wyndham Regional, BDCC, the towns, the state, the federal, and more. Giving you updates on things like the hand sanitizer that's available from Vermont Distillers now, telling you who's open for takeout food and curbside pickup and things like that. And then, just trying to get the word out about the ways that some of our businesses are trying to help people at this time. I was reached out to by Heather Kelly of Sticky Fingers just prior to Easter, and she was giving away 20-something loaves of bread for free for Easter. So, just trying to share as much of that information with you guys as possible, and that comes out in those emails. Now, if for some reason you're not on those emails lists and you're not seeing that information coming through, you can actually go to our website, visitvermont.com. There's a news section. I'm going to share my screen with you for just a minute to show you that. So in this news section, what I've been doing is anytime we send out a correspondence to you guys, I also post them up to this news section so you can go back and look at all that information after the fact. If you missed it, or if one didn't come through to your address or anything like that, they're all available right here on visitvermont.com. And I'll be doing that with any other email correspondences that we're sending out to you. If you are not getting those emails and would like to be, you can just go ahead and email me, Eric, at visitvermont.com, and I'll get you on the list, or we can put you on Meg's list at Wilmington Works, or whatever, however you want to go about it. We'd be happy to get you on that list. One of the things that Meg and I did get out to the businesses almost as soon as we all started to shut down was a survey. We referred to it as a social distancing survey. If you have not seen that or filled it out, I'd be happy to send it out to you. I'm sure Meg would be happy to send it out to you. Basically what it does is it allows us to collect information about who's doing business, what services are available. Are you closed altogether? Are you offering curbside pickup or delivery? Do you sell gift certificates? All of it's pretty pertinent information that we'd like to be able to share with as many people as possible. So if you haven't seen that, it's been out in a few of the emails, but we'd be happy to send you that information as well. Meg, maybe if you could post a link to that just in the chat if you have it readily available. But go ahead and fill that out. And then what it does is it notifies us that that information has come in. That page, that document is actually linked from the front page of visitvermont.com as well as the front page of Wilmington Works. And we've been sharing on Facebook and in our emails as well. So go ahead and fill that out, and we'll make sure we get the information out to everybody. Another thing we've been doing is working with Wilmington Works and Gretchen at the town of Wilmington to make one-on-one calls to all of our businesses in the Valley. If you haven't heard from us yet, there's a lot more of you than you may think. We're really trying to get on the phone and have, some pretty serious talks with you guys about how you're doing, both mentally and with your business, some steps that you can be taking to kind of take care of some bills at this point, really just to make sure that you're doing okay, let you know about funding that may be available, and just ask questions, have you ask us questions. So, if you haven't heard from us yet, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, call the chamber number. I know Wilmington Works has their number posted right on their website. So feel free to reach out to us if we haven't gotten to you first. The other thing that we're doing as the chamber is we are working with and lobbying with the VACE group. So that's the Vermont Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. And we're working on lobbying with them on things like for the dining industry, the Don't 86th initiative, helping to, trying to help with some tax payments and things like that, working with them to lobby for our local lodging establishments to allow you guys to get bookings back open, which the governor agreed to do, I believe it was last week, working with them on questions for our real estate agents, which it looks like they were hearing those as well. And then also just talking to the other chambers statewide to see what it is they're doing right now and how we can be working with them and getting ideas from them to help you guys moving forward. So I'm on one of those calls once a week, and we'll make sure that our voice is heard. So if there's anything you'd like run up the flagpole to the state level on a pretty quick note, go ahead and reach out to me, and I'd be happy to forward that along to our legislators as well as the Vermont Chamber, the Vermont Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. And then, just another thing we've tried to been doing for you guys is, sharing as much as possible on Facebook about who's open and who's doing live videos, and just letting everybody know that, we may not all have open doors right now, but we are still here and we're not going anywhere. If you've posted something on Facebook and you'd really like to see us share it, just don't hesitate to reach out to me. I do my best to follow all of our local businesses, but like I said, there's so many of you. So I'm probably not all the way there yet. So if there's something you shared and you'd like to see it shared publicly, just go ahead and reach out to me or Meg, and we'll make sure we get it shared on one of our channels. So moving along here, I'd like to open it up. I've asked our representatives and some other people on the call to just hop on and give some quick updates before we get into questions. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I will start with our one of our local representatives, Laura Sibilia. Laura, I tried to unmute you. There we go.
Here I am.
Hi, Laura. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
I'm well. Thanks for doing this, Eric.
Of course.
Hello, folks. Some of you I've seen recently, some of you I have not seen recently. It's nice to see your faces. Ken Spicer, I see you down there, one of my old bosses. I know we have a brief amount of time here, so and I know John will talk about some other aspects. I'm on the Energy and Technology Committee. I'm not sure how much that is affecting all of your lives. The legislature is starting to meet right now. There is it's a pretty good video talking about how you can follow along with legislative efforts that are happening. I would encourage you to do so. There's, the State House is usually really open. Now it's even more so. So there's an ability to watch testimony as it's happening from your living room. You used to have to drive to Montpelier. I don't know that is addressing your immediate needs, although those are really the only pieces of legislation that we are trying to take up are things that are addressing Vermonters' immediate needs. I think we're anticipating, hopefully by the end of this week, taking a vote on whether or not we can vote remotely. Aside from that, I would tell you what I've been up to since the state of emergency. I am trying to send out communications pretty regularly. I do have a 7 a.m. coffee call that I'm doing on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And, just whatever folks want to talk about. Sometimes we're talking about issues, sometimes we're talking about our kids, sometimes we're talking about the weather. In addition, I am working with BDCC on their outreach. They have two programs. One, as Eric said, working with the regional community and economic development partners in anticipation of when the pain stops. We're going to have some pretty serious hills we'll be climbing. So making sure that all of our partners are starting to come together now and talk about what we're seeing, what we think we'll be needing to do, what information would be best to have. And we've been fortunate enough to have our federal delegation weighing in on those as well. And then BDCC has been doing a weekly call on Fridays, as well as assigning their staff people. All of their staff people were turned off their other job descriptions and turned on to business liaisons right now to work one-on-one with businesses, just connecting them to resources, helping to answer questions, making sure that we have a beat on folks. And the way you get into that, the first group were the BDCC tenants, but that is open and available to all businesses throughout Wyndham Regional. So if that's something that's helpful, I'd encourage you to contact. And I think I will stop right there, Eric, and happy to answer questions when and if you'd like to have that happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the updates, Laura. All right, so now we're going to move on to another of our representatives, John Gannon. John, give me just a second. I'm going to unmute you here so you can give us some updates. So John's going to be giving us updates from the state level as well as the town of Wilmington.
Thanks, Eric. As I think many of you know, I serve on the Government Operations Committee in the House. We've been very busy since COVID-19 struck Vermont with updating election laws, open meeting laws, EMS issues, and most recently dealing with municipal tax issues. Specifically with respect to that is allowing towns the ability to waive the 8% tax penalty that many people pay if they have an inability to pay their taxes, to extend some of the periods of time for taxes to be paid in, which are important issues. And we're working with House Ways and Means to figure out a way to help towns with making payments to the state with respect to the education side of the property taxes, which could be a huge impact on towns, because we anticipate that many individuals will seek tax abatements. And so if a town approves a tax abatement, the town has to make the state whole for the education side of that property tax abatement, which will be a challenge for many towns. So our committee has been very, very busy during this period of time. I should say that, your Windham County delegation, which Laura and I are part of, has also been very active. We have regularly scheduled calls every Saturday at 1 p.m. To talk about issues that are impacting Windham County. I think those calls have been very good at identifying issues, whether it's about the retreat, farmers markets, or other issues, and getting information out to people, which I think you've seen in the Deerfield Valley News, some of the information that we've been putting out. So those are the issues that I'm working on in the House. As Laura said, hopefully we will meet as an entire House this week and pass a resolution that will allow us to vote. I think it's very important that we get back to business. Though, like Laura, I think the fact that committees are meeting by Zoom gives more people an opportunity to participate. And I hope in some way that we continue to do that after this crisis is over, because I've actually really enjoyed being in Wilmington during the session instead of in Montpelier. I know some people like to be up there, but I actually find, if there was a little more time to be in your own community, that'd be better. And I think, some of these Zoom meetings help with that. I have a lot of information. I think, there's some announcements with respect to unemployment insurance today that you may be interested in. I won't touch on those now, but I'd be glad to answer questions on that. And some of the information about the federal loan packages that we got a briefing on Friday. But the other thing I want to talk to you about is what the Wilmington Select Board has done. We have reinvented our revolving loan fund to specifically deal with businesses that are impacted by COVID-19. Thanks to the leadership of Gretchen on this, as well as the work of Eric and Meg in reaching out to Wilmington businesses. We have given loans to 12 businesses for a total of $96,000. And I think it's very important to give back to businesses, because without those businesses, there would be no local option tax or no local option fund. Well, we are nearing our cap on that amount of money that was reserved for the revolving loan fund. I anticipate that the Select Board will increase that cap once we reach it. So I would encourage businesses who have not applied to consider applying. All the loans that we have given at this point are 0% interest loans. Most of the periods are for 3 years, but some are more, some are less. I think Gretchen has done a terrific job of working with businesses to try to meet their needs. So I'm really proud that we're able to take that step, and I hope that we can help other businesses that have yet applied. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, John, for the updates, and thank you for being on the call. So I'm going to move on now to Shannon Wheeler of the Dover Economic Development Department to kind of touch on what the town of Dover has been doing for our local businesses and things like that. Just some brief updates about the program they're running for assistance. All right, Shannon, I have unmuted you.
Hello. So the town of Dover, our select board and economic development team created the SEEP program, which is the Commercial Emergency Assistance Program for grants. So we've been offering monthly grants of up to $1,000 to businesses located in Dover who've applied. So at our last select board meeting, 80 businesses were approved for that program. So they have already, I believe, all have received their checks, or they're in the mail. We're working on those. Thank you, Sarah. So we're working on that. The select board initially set aside $100,000 for the program. They did vote at the last meeting to increase that. So far, we're waiting to see how many more businesses I know Eric has been very helpful in reaching out to all of our Dover businesses. Just like Wilmington, there's a lot more businesses in Dover than I think a lot of people realize. So we're working towards that. At tonight's meeting, we have another about 18 or so applications that have come in that will be up for review. The criteria when originally placed was a Dover for-profit business. Up for discussion tonight is our nonprofits to see if they would like to change the program for them. So it's a very easy application. You can find it on the Town of Dover website under Departments and Economic Development, or you can always reach out to Eric or Meg or anybody that you're familiar with who can get you that information as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then we also have updates coming from Meg Staloff at Wilmington Works. Oh, hold on. There we go.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, so just a few things. In addition to making business contact calls, we've also been working on my end. I've been working with both the Rotary and the Lions Club, and I was asked by some local landlords to put together some community resources. So we have done that. There's kind of a living document. It's a little more targeted towards Wilmington in some ways, but it's also applicable to anyone. So if, I know you business owners especially are in contact with a different group of people than we might be sitting in our organization. So if there's anyone, your employees, customers you talk to that have questions that may need extra assistance, you can point them to that resource. It's on WilmingtonWorksVT.com. That's our website. And it's an orange button at the top of the page that says local resources. And it has anything we could think of from the direct link for FAQs for unemployment to, food banks, things like that. We know a lot of people who have never had to ask for assistance or benefits before may need to now. And I just want to put the word out in the community for people to be aware of that and, just share that information, letting people know that they are certainly entitled to what they need and to know where to get help for themselves and their families. So again, that's at WilmingtonWorksVT.com. Just anything we could think of there. And please feel free to share that information. And I know a lot of our Lions Club members have been working on that too in Dover, in Wilmington, and Whitingham as well. But just put that information, it's there, it's a living document. I update it all the time when I find something new. Friends of the Valley are doing select grants. We know that Twice Blessed is still available for people who need help. So just let that be known. On a business end of things, we've been talking about maybe getting some sector-specific Zoom calls together. So for people who, own restaurants, people who own retail stores, maybe people working in property management and construction, who have similar things that they're going to need to sort of come up against. We were just thinking about restaurants, as we do a phased reopening down the road, restaurants are probably only going to be able to fill half their seats. How can we share information about best practices for social distancing? How are people handling doing online ordering, integrating that into their workflow? So I think I see Maple Leaf Tavern people here, you guys have done that. How is that going to integrate when you can actually have seats, and how can we share that information amongst each other? How can retail stores talk about doing online business and how that works with your regular workflow? So we'll get those Zoom calls going. If people in those groups want to make them a regular thing, that is possible. I just think it's a great way for us to, we have a little time now, we have a little lead time. We don't have to be building the plane while we're flying it the way our government has had to do. So let's take that time to think about how, when we can reopen our businesses, it's not going to be all at once. How can we deal with that interim period and work together so that we have ideas of how to get through this? So we'll send invitations out for those as we get them together. And if they become regular groups for those sectors, I think that's great. We'll see how it goes. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the updates, Meg. And last but certainly not least, most of the amazing information that we've been sending out to all of you guys regarding SBA loans and the guidelines therein is coming from our friend Deborah Boudrio at the Vermont Small Business Development Center. So I have her on the call today just to kind of help us out with maybe some updates on that as well. So welcome, Deb.
Hello, everyone. As usual, Wilmington and Deerfield knock it out of the park, so it's lovely to see you all and know how responsive everyone has been. Maybe Irene taught us a few things. Unfortunately, today, I'm not sure I have much to say, except, we're fingers crossed that all of the things that have been shuttered by the federal government either get refunded or they do some kind of substitute replacements. What we are hearing as of this morning is, the hope is that the PPP program will be refunded up to $250 billion. They're not sure how much of that will actually drop open to new loans because there is an amount in the pipeline from the point where the SBA said it was closed to when the banks actually were informed, and there were things, crossing in the middle of the night. And so they are saying that they will, of course, fund those first. So the ultimate amount of money due for that, that will be remaining for that, will get a count, we hope. Vermont actually did $1 billion in that loan program. We have, and we continue to say that there are, as everyone knows, serious concerns about the use of those programs, that particular program, and making sure that the money that you do receive is used in such a way that when you apply for forgiveness, knowing that forgiveness is not automatic and not guaranteed at 100%, that you will gain as much of that forgiveness as you possibly can. So every one of our clients who's gotten it, or people that we've talked to that we've asked to circle back before they sign the paperwork, we do the debt calculation on that. What would happen if in fact it was not forgiven? The process is an application process, and it does have a criteria, but we have not seen, nor have the banks, the application process or the criteria. So there's some dispute about a fair number of things in that program and how to use them, but we do know that as close as you can come to doing what you said you were going to do, which was payroll and those, allocated expenses that are okay for that, interest, mortgage interest, rent, utilities, some lease payments, that you keep exquisite, really exquisite documentation. That's going to be really key to getting as close to forgiveness, 100% forgiveness as you can. We're certainly reading between the lines of those documents, and our gut is that the allocated, the expenses that can be considered attached to that are probably not going to be forgiven. It looks like forgiveness will rest mostly on the payroll portion, and again, it's going to be an exacting process, but not, I think if you just use it for exactly what it's intended for and be in line in forgiveness. But again, do the math on that. It sounds like it's one of those loans that sounds like it's really good because it's at 1%, but the repayment period is 24 months and the forgiveness is 6 months, not the forgiveness, but the deferment of the first payment is 6 months, which is within the 24 months. So it makes it 18%, it makes it 1% at 18 months. And the numbers go up on that pretty astronomically high. I did $100,000 that way the other day, and for 24 months, I think it's like 3,700, and for 18 months, it's over 5,000. So it sounds good until you actually do the math. So we're just asking that people pause and do the math. And certainly I'll put my email address in the chat so that you can email me if you have any other questions. We are updating the disaster lending document that Eric has referred to, but we're waiting until we see what what DC does so that we can update it and not make you read that whole thing again. I know it's getting pretty long. In terms of the EIDL, of course, that is closed as well. The EEIG, the grant portion up to $10,000, what we are being told is that that will be fulfilled on a first come, first served basis. We have asked what day that might be in the application process. At the point they closed it down, they had 4 million applications. We have found a few people in Vermont who have received that EEIG advance/grant. but not very many. And they were ones that went in on 3/31 or 4/1. We've asked if they can give us some idea of where they are, and they simply can't. So look for it. It's just appearing in your bank accounts. It has a very long descriptor when you see it. I will say that we are asking people who do PPPs to not spend that. And here's the reason why. Right now, in the terminology of the PPP program, it states that if you get EEIG money, it will be subtracted from the actually makes it a loan if you follow that thought to the end, and that's pretty startling. I'm not sure that that's what they intended to say, but until they clarify that, we've asked every single day. We have a list of questions that gets run up the flagpole, and we put those in order of importance, and that one is right near the top. But we are suggesting to our clients that they not spend it until we know how that plays out. If the EIDL program reopens and you do eventually do the full EIDL application, then the EEIG is in fact an advance against that amount, but you don't have to pay it back. So a lot of people, there's a lot of confusion about the fact that everyone thinks that they've done the EIDL application, and we don't know anyone, and we have not had a single person in Vermont who's actually completed that full application. The reason is that when the SBA changed it on the 31st to be a streamlined application, that was really to allow you to access the EEIG, and you will be contacted by the SBA eventually to ask if it gets refunded, if you want to continue with that application process. And it's much more extensive. That's the piece that's about economic injury impact. And those of you who went through this with me post Irene, it's about the difference between the period of time that they designate for the disaster, your revenue in that period of time versus the revenue against the last 3 years of the same period of time. So there's documentation around all of that information, plus other business and financial information that they'll ask for. So I'm sorry that they were so confusing about that. We asked them early on to change that and let you know that you weren't doing the whole application at this point. So I get a lot of emails every day going, I did the EIDL application. When can I expect my loan money? The answer is you're not going to get it until you fill out the whole application. At this point also, there was the leaked information from California that people who had gone through the process there decided to just do it with 1 month's worth of impact to report, who had gotten sizable amounts, got a note that they would be getting a $15,000 advance against that, and that would be all at this point. So I think we'll see what happens with DC, what they do with that. In the meantime, we are encouraging people to look at the RLFs that are, the regional funding operations that are changing the state of their money and doing those applications. But we're really looking towards now, how do you reopen, who reopens, when they reopen, and really trying to help people take a look at, because the reality is probably 90% of our businesses won't be at full revenue stream when they open. I think no one can say at this point, how the public is going to respond to being able to be out of our houses, whether we're all going to rush out and want to be together, or we're going to come out with a little bit more trepidation. So we're looking with doing things about what does cash flow look like, how much do you need to, where can you reduce expenses, what does a returned workforce look like? So we're looking forward right now, trying to help people. It's hard. We understand that. It's because no one can put a container around how much longer this is going to last. Those of us who go through Irene are using a term now where we say, but the water is still rising. And so I think that's the sort of key that we all have to sort of continue to find some sanity in the midst of this. I still have openings in my schedule. I'm doing half-hour calls to get people started on processes. So I'll put my email up in the email inbox. We are also triaging in other kinds of ways, but we're doing what everybody else on this call is probably doing. And that's, we're working 6 days a week and long days just to see if we can touch as many people as we possibly can. So that's what I have today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deb, for the updates and for being on the call. I'm actually going to stick right with you for a second because I have 2 questions that came in and I think you might be able to help with them. Okay. So the first one, it says, I have been approved for money or on the PPP. I have been approved but not received my money. Once I get it, can I use it to pay past due salaries?
I think that's a gray area. If they were salaries that were from the point that COVID began its impact, which for the federal government begins on 3/31, you might have a chance. Again, this is a very difficult area because until we see those actual forgiveness guidelines and the criteria, we're reading between the lines of, pages and pages and pages of documents. And some of them actually, even from the SBA and the Treasury, don't sync. I think Sarah said, building the plane while they're flying it is really what happened with the CARES Act, which was the intention of the federal government to deliver, but then they had to turn around and hand it off to the agencies. And as the agencies have actually created it and made it into statutes and laws and delivery systems, I think we're seeing differences. So I would say we don't have an answer to that question. And in all of the reading that I've done, and I've become the sort of PPP person because I'm the person who puts together the 101 and 201 and 301 and 401 that you have in your hand. I have not seen any language about past employment. But again, I think if it happened between, you might have a chance. I mean, the wording on this is about immediate return to work. So that's the piece that's making me a little hesitant in saying yes to that. And the money is supposed to appear in your bank 10 calendar days from the point that you signed your loans. There was a moment where some banks were putting money out without the SBA signing documents, and I don't actually know whether they've received those yet. I haven't seen them. So a lot of the banks who were distributing money using a regular sort of loan, closing document that they had, but was not the formal SBA closing document. I suspect that they'll be going back and asking people to re-sign those SBA legal documents, but we'll see. So sorry, that's not an answer, but I think caution, we are really saying caution on this one.
No, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, I think the point of this whole conversation is to get the questions out there. So even if we don't have the answers to them right now, we can be thinking about them moving forward. Deb, I do have one more question for you, which I'll get to in just a moment. What I want to do, though, is just remind everybody, if you have a question, we have about 20 minutes left. Go ahead and feel free to put it into the chat function or go ahead and raise your hand. If you are not on a computer with the raise hand function in the chat box, go ahead and press *9 on your phone, and that'll raise your hand, and I'll see it from here. So moving into the next question for you, Deb, asking, it was from 2 different people. I'm going to put it into one question. It says, does payroll include benefits? So the co-pays for health insurance, does it include your taxes, or is it the gross, or is it the net?
So we have seen that it covers state and federal taxes and bonuses and vacation pay. So I would assume that you could consider that all of those were covered at this point. Again, it's really about documentation. We are really suggesting, I happen to talk to a really intelligent business owner in the beginning of the PPP program. And they had gone and read the 31-page Treasury document themselves. And they decided to not take the factor, the 2.5, instead of multiplying their monthly 2019, number by 2.5, They just did it by 2. And because they said that reading between the lines, they really felt like it's going to be pretty spectacular if you actually got the other portion forgiven, which I concur, having read all the documents. And they opened a second account at the bank. They had them put the PPP money in that account. When their payroll comes from their payroll service, they are going to transfer the exact amount to the penny from the PPP account into their major checking account. And that way they're going to take back documentation of usage that's penny to penny to their payroll. That's probably the kind of documentation that's going to get you the strongest chance of getting the forgiveness. We have seen forgiveness referred to even in the Treasury Department as on a sliding scale. So we're assuming that some of those things are going to be about that, about record keeping, and again, match to that number that you gave them from the previous year. So I think I have seen bonuses, vacation pay, state and local taxes. I've not seen unemployment insurance anywhere or anything, above and beyond that. So, and Eric, I will add that question about back pay to our list as well and see whether we can get an answer.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. I do see a note from Simon who says our loan details said only 8 weeks from the date that it arrives. So there may be different guidelines.
No, right now, what it says that we can see is that the moment the money appears in your account, and again, the bank has 10 calendar days from the point that you sign the loan document to get the money into your account. Most banks have been doing it a whole lot faster than that. I mean, I've had people sign their documents in the morning and their money was there in the afternoon. The clock starts the minute that money appears in your account. The SBA is interpreting the language in the Treasury Department document to say that you must bring back the full complement of the staff that matches the number that you used, the FTEs plus the compensation level, starting that day for 8 weeks. It makes not a lot of sense to a lot of people because if you're closed, why would you bring your people off unemployment? And that's been the big question that hasn't been answered. We've asked it again every day. If I bring back people for 8 weeks, I pull them off unemployment and I get to the end of the 8 weeks, which is only the beginning of June, now the first week of June, second week of June. And I have opened, but I don't have the level of revenue that I had before COVID, which we're assuming that most people again won't. Can I lay someone off again at that point and have them go back on unemployment? We don't know the answer to that question. So we've been suggesting to our employers that they look at it as I brought them back forever. So can I maintain them over that period of time? This sweet spot of the PPP is really people who are already in business and have all of their employees on. So the essential businesses are probably the better sweet spot for those. So yes, the 8 weeks begins, the clock begins the moment the money is in your bank, the way we are reading all of the documents right now. There is one document from the Treasury itself that says you can bring them back anytime between now and the end of June when the loan period ends, but everything else has contradicted that. So we're really concerned that people just understand the clock starts now. It also starts now on the 24-month term. So the deferment period starts now, but that means that you would be having a payment on whatever wasn't forgiven starting in October.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Deb.
You're welcome.
I have a question from Simon about, and I'm assuming it's Simon. Yep, it is Simon at the Kitsoff. And I'm going to direct that question to Sarah Shippey. Simon asks if there are any plans to help with the sewer tax. Sarah, is that anything you can shed light on?
That he would have to direct that question to North Branch because that's not technically under the control of the select board.
Okay.
You need to
Well,
call. You
yeah,
need to call into Holland.
we did actually, we have done that as a community, and they've got no relief at all. But the PPP loan, if we were to use even a percentage of it, it would completely wipe the loan out for us. So we certainly can't use that for it. So
Did were you one of the businesses that got the $1,000?
yes,
You did. That's a month. You'll get that per month. That's not a one shot.
right, yeah. But that, I mean, that's lovely, but it won't go anywhere towards my sewer tax.
I'm not sure what sort of power the select board would have over North Branch. They're an independent. The fire district is not under the purview of the select board. We don't have any control of their budgets or how they run their programs. So we can certainly ask. And if you
Well,
have,
I mean,
if you want to email me with how you'd like me to address it with them, I'm happy to bring it up.
okay. I know that there has already been an approach to them, which we've stood back from because our next question is regarding, our citizenship, etc., which we have a problem with the North Branch anyway. And also, you probably can't answer this, but somebody else on the call might be able to answer it. We were wondering regarding the stimulus checks, whether or not we would be allowed that being taxpayers. I don't know if anyone on the call knows the answer to that.
Did you file income tax?
Yeah,
We are
we're taxpayers.
Yeah, we're income taxpayers, and we were filed for 18 and 19, and we've been accepted for the SBA loan. Not that we've got it, but we have been accepted for it. So I wonder.
Which loan?
Sorry, carry on.
Which loan do you think that you've been accepted for?
The PPP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But the bank's dragging its feet on it.
I mean, I had an email today from.
That's because they probably still don't have the SBA signing documents, the legal documents that they're required to use. And some banks were willing to go out ahead of that and dispense money, and other banks have felt very strongly that the program changed so much from what they were originally told to do to what they're seeing filtered down into the actual, verbiage that they're seeing, that they're being a little hesitant. But if you've signed papers, if you've actually done more than gotten a notification and you've signed the actual documents, then they only have 10 calendar days to get you the money.
Okay. Do you know the answer about the stimulus check that I asked?
As far as I understand it, as long as you have filed federal income taxes in 2019, it should be a shoo-in. But again, I don't know whether, your citizenship has any impact on that. I think the best thing to do, I would suggest, if one of the, the legislators here could help you find that out.
Yes.
I can help answer that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the economic impact payments started last week on April 15th. The first tranche went out that week if you had direct deposit. And so these dates I'm about to read you only apply if you have direct deposit with the IRS. So the first tranche went out on April 15th. The second will go out on April 22nd. And the third will go out on April 29th. There's a random order, so it's not like it's alphabetical. If you do not have direct deposit with the IRS and are going to get a check, it is going to take a lot longer. They anticipate they can issue 5 million checks per week. So it's going to take quite some time if you don't have direct deposit. Sorry.
And that filing is for your personal tax, not for your business tax.
That's correct. And I should also say, even if you did not file taxes last year, you can go to the IRS site and input certain information, and that will allow you to get the check.
Yeah,
You didn't file taxes.
But you don't know for sure whether we would be excluded because we're not citizens or E2 or green card holders?
I don't know the answer to that, but I think if you go to the IRS site, they do have eligibility requirements on the site.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're usually only worried about whether you pay tax or not, regardless of citizenship.
Perfect. Thanks for your help with that one, John, and thank you guys for the question. John, I'm going to keep you here with me. I have a question here. It says, I filed but did not submit payment for February rooms and meals. March is due at the end of the week. Should I proceed the same? Is there any more discussion on abatement? Now, from the chamber side of things, and John, I'll let you hop in here after to see if you have any updates from the state level, because I know there's two different schools of thought here on this topic. From the chamber side, we are still kind of pushing to provide you guys with abatement of those payments. Whether or not everybody can get out of payments that are due. Everybody's asking for a lot at the state level right now, and we completely understand that they can't just give everybody what they want. However, a letter was submitted by VACE on behalf of our chambers and our local businesses to the chair of the Ways and Means staff to ask for an abatement of those taxes. I have not received an update back from the Vermont Chamber on whether there was a reply to that letter, but that's kind of where we are on the chamber front there. The recommendation that was given to me from the state chamber was to advise that even if you cannot afford to make those payments at the moment, they do need to be filed. You should be filing each month for the total of those rooms and meals, even if you can't fully make the payment right now, just so that the state can get an idea of what it is that should be coming in from those dollars if they are going to come in or if they're going to be abated. John, did you have any updates from the state level on that abatement?
So, no, I don't. I have not heard with respect to that issue. I mean, abatement's a difficult issue. We're addressing that issue with respect to property taxes. And one of the thoughts with respect to at least property taxes is instead of abating is attempting to defer taxes, which means you still have to pay them, but it gives a little leeway to people. And I should say for people who need to file their meals and rooms taxes, there still will not be charged any penalty or interest for late submissions.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. I have a hand raised from Patty Pusey, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Thank you, John. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Patty. There she is.
Are you there?
Hi, Patty. You had a question?
Yes, I did. Deb, I think there's a lot of controversy about what constitutes a small business. It seems like we hear on the news that these huge corporations are applying for the small business loans and getting them and depleting the amount for the quote unquote real small businesses. And what is it that is the definition? I guess that's my basic question.
So the definition, the SVDC is a federally funded program out of an appropriations from Congress every year. And our guidelines are to use the SBA guidelines, which is any business up to 500 people.
Okay.
And yes, it is. I don't work for the SBA, so I can say that our thought is that our feeling is that it's pretty horrific that these big chains broke it up and the hedge fund guys figured out how to get around, some rules and regulations to apply for this, because they certainly did take the money out of the hands of the people who really needed it. So it's kind of sad and horrifying, but that's exactly what happened. I know that, and maybe John and the others can speak better to this, but what our bosses said in talking to the congressionals is there was a great deal of discussion about whether they should change the PPP as it is right now and close some of those loopholes, change some things, extend the deadline, make this immediate thing, the clock starts at 8 weeks, allow more flexibility and use of that so that people could use it in a more logical fashion. We'll see whether they're able to tack any of that on or change anything. We have asked several questions that have bumped up against that it's statute now, that as they did this, they wrote it into law, and that in order to get those things changed, it has to go back through the process. And of course, then it goes back through two very divided political parties. So they really, I think, are weighing, what's the greater good here that they could possibly achieve. But hopefully the press is going to give them enough flack about these large numbers, these $20 million, $5 million payrolls that are getting covered, which is, excuse me, we didn't need to be doing that. So.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Gretchen, also, do you think Wilmington will ever do the $1,000 grant like the Dover did to the Wilmington businesses from the 1% extra tax on the room and meals tax?
So, we developed a program, I don't know if you were on early, that John talked about. It's called the Disaster Resiliency Loan Fund. And it's available to Wilmington businesses. It's a loan up to $20,000, but we are running very low on that, so you're probably not going to get $20,000. And it is 0% interest rate, and they are still accepting other applications at this point.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Does that answer your question, Patty?
Pardon?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's two entirely different things. I mean, you may not have the fund base that Dover has.
Right, to do the $1,000, yeah. So just an overview. Dover, of course, instituted their 1% local option tax many years before Wilmington did. It was after the flood. And of course, they have Mount Snow.
I understand that. Yep.
And so the town of Wilmington has like a quarter of what Mount Snow has.
Gotcha.
Okay, so
Is that helpful?
Thank you.
Gretchen, thank you so much. And Patty, thank you so much for the question. I have 2 other questions. If we don't get to your other questions that might be popping up today, please email myself or Meg or Gretchen or any of the rest of us who are here working on these things for you, and be happy to get answers for you on all of them. So I'm going to turn it over just real quick to Melissa Ellis. You had a question?
Actually, Sarah just had answered that, so I think I'm all set.
Okay, perfect. So then the last question that I think we're going to have time for today, and I think, John, again, this one's going to end up coming back to you to see if there's anything you may have heard on this from the state level. It says, is the state of Vermont allowing businesses to defer payment of Vermont withholding taxes due 4/25 or the state unemployment taxes due on 4/30? Any insight on that?
No, I saw that question and I've been looking for an answer for it, and I have been unable to find it, but I will double check and post something about that.
Perfect. And Royal and Ned, thank you so much for the question. I will go ahead and get that back to you as soon as I get some more information from John. So that brings us right to 2:15. Again, I just want to thank everybody who was on the call today with us, John and Laura and Gretchen and Meg and Deb and Shannon. Thank you so much for being here to help answer questions and to give us updates. And thank you to all of our business owners for joining us. Again, please do not hesitate to use the Chamber, to use Wilmington Works, and to use Shannon and Dover and Gretchen and Wilmington as your sounding board with your questions. We get a lot of this information. We send so much of it out to you every week. We understand that it can make your eyes glaze over a little bit. So please, by all means, be contacting us with any questions you have, even if it's just specific to your business. We want to help you, and it may open our eyes to questions we should be asking other businesses that are in the same sector as yours. So please reach out to us. And again, just thank you everybody for being on the call today, and we will talk to you all very soon.